On today's show, Sacramento Kings center, three-time NBA champion, and Olympic gold medalist JaVale McGee joins me to talk about Mike Brown's contract extension, De'Aaron Fox's growth as a leader, the Kings' defensive improvement. Oh, and this Saturday, he's got a celebrity softball game happening here in Sacramento. It's all right here for you on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all offseason long. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. And can you tell I'm excited? Oh yeah, having any Sacramento Kings player on the Locked On Kings podcast is a real thrill. It's a real treat. I've been looking forward to doing this conversation with JaVale McGee for a while. JaVale, only one season in Sacramento, but has had a long, extremely successful NBA career, and I've really enjoyed getting to cover him and his version of the Sacramento Kings team. We know the result wasn't necessarily what they wanted, the Kings missing the playoffs this year, but I had a fun time covering JaVale and getting to know him a little bit in that sense. And then he's been doing the rounds of different media here in the greater Sacramento area because of his amazing event that he's putting on this Saturday at Sutter Health Park, the Jug Life celebrity golf tournament. Jug Life is a foundation that he co-founded. He's going to tell you a little bit more about that, but also we touch on so much stuff in this interview, right? We'll talk about like the evolution of the big man in the NBA. We'll talk a lot about Mike Brown. We'll talk about De'Aaron Fox's leadership and what JaVale tried to bring to this Kings team from a leadership perspective. We'll talk about missing the playoffs, losing to the Pelicans 6 times. There's so much stuff in this interview. I really enjoyed this conversation. JaVale, nice enough to spend almost half an hour with me. So he's awesome for that. But I hope you enjoy it. I certainly enjoyed it. You want to respond to anything JaVale said and weigh in on anything, please do so at any time. You can do so on Twitter or X, Matt George, or at Matt George Sack. You can email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. And if you're watching on YouTube, get loose in the comment section down below. But for now, here's my conversation with Sacramento Kings center JaVale McGee. Happy to be joined by Sacramento Kings center JaVale McGee here on the Locked On Kings podcast. JaVale, so nice enough to take some time before a major event happening in Sacramento on Saturday that he's putting on. He'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a little bit. But JaVale, I wanted to start with something. I'm excited to talk to an NBA center because I hear this conversation all the time. This is a guards league, right? The NBA is a guards league. The traditional big man, those days are dead, right? But you have Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid rattling off MVPs. You got Domantas Sabonis leading the league in double-doubles and triple-doubles. What is your, as a center's, perspective on the guards league mantra and the modern-day big man?
I mean, it definitely was a guards league. It was a big man league when I first got in the league, and then thanks to guys like Draymond and smaller guys who can guard multiple positions, the big man was really being washed out of the game. But now, thanks to Jokic, like you said, Embiid, we're coming back and making an impact on MVP levels. To the fact that we're not just and at the same aspect, if you look at Jokic, it's not just scoring. It's facilitating also. But I just think the bigs are getting, especially European bigs, are getting so much more skill than they were in the big bruiser era. So now you can see the big man coming back.
One of my favorite bigs to talk about and to study with this is Brook Lopez. I mean, he comes into the league as a post-dominant player, and
Absolutely.
now he's a three-point specialist and rim protector. How has your game changed from your early days in Denver to where you're at right now? How have you had to adapt to the wave of being a big in the modern NBA?
For sure. I've definitely had to change my game to more of a. It's always been a run and gun aspect. but more of a run and gun, even on the defensive aspect of being up on screens and things like that, and in the switching era to where the big needs to switch up on the guard and be able to guard. I also believe, me personally, I was never given that opportunity to shoot threes on a contending team. But Brook worked on his game to a different level, and you can see what it turned out, how it turned out for him, and even Al Horford.
Is that 3-point shot in your bag, JaVale? You wish you could take that more?
It's definitely in my bag, but apparently I catch lobs 10 times better. So.
Well, we saw the lobs, and we saw you hit it. I think I remember a 3 or 2 this season in Sacramento.
Yeah.
We had some fun with that. Hey, so going back to last summer, Monty McNair, Mike Brown, they bring you in, right? You're joining this team that had just made the playoffs for the first time, probably in your career. The Sacramento Kings had just made the playoffs for the first time. What did they ask of you? What were they saying? This is why we want you. This is what we need from you joining this team.
When I talked to Mike, he wanted me to come and bring that lob threat that they didn't have. But also that veteran locker room leadership, that winning mindset that I've been able to bring with me to multiple teams. Obviously, I've won 3 NBA championships and 2 actually with Mike. So that was definitely a plus when it came to me coming to Sacramento.
So you just saw Mike receive a well-deserved contract extension, JaVale. I don't know if you're aware of this. He's the first Kings coach since Rick Adelman. So first Kings coach in almost 20 years just to make it to a second contract, which is pretty absurd. Yeah. I mean, just your thoughts on Mike getting that extension and how deserving he is of that. And then can you provide any perspective just in your time in the league of how important it is to have a consistent head coach and a consistent coaching staff and not have to deal with the chaos of changing coaches and systems every 3 years?
I mean, to answer your first question, Mike definitely deserved it. Like you said, the team hadn't been in the playoffs since I had been in the league. So he definitely deserved it. And last year, I feel like we had a good season also. It's just the West was so strong. And you really couldn't tell who came out of the West last year. And then what was the second part?
Just your thoughts on how important it is to have consistent leadership or consistent coaching staff.
So my rookie, the team I was drafted to, Washington Wizards, I had 4 coaches, I believe, in my rookie contract. Ooh. I had Eddie Jordan, and then he got fired 10 games in. We were 0-10, and then I had Eddie Tapscott, I believe, and then I had Flip Saunders, and then he got fired middle of the season, and I had somebody else. So as a young guy, it's hard to, especially coming in as a young guy, you're used to being in college where you're not as you don't communicate as much with your coaches just because you're coming from high school, unless you were that number 1 guy, of course. But if you weren't that number 1 guy, McDonald's All-American, you go into college and you're like, okay, I got to listen to everything the coach says. And then when you get to the NBA, you assume it's the same way and don't realize, no, you're on your own and you need to grind and figure out how to be a professional and a grown man at the same aspect. So not being able to talk to this coach, okay, I saw what you did last year. I think you need to work on this in the next year so you can get better. You get a new coach who has I don't rock with rookies, or they have different ways of coaching. So it's hard for a player to continuously switch coaches. So it's a blessing that these guys, and especially these young guys like Keegan and guys like that, get to have the same coach in multiple years and also success with that coach.
Something I admire about Mike, too, is it appears from my perspective, JaVale, I'm not in the huddle with you guys, but it appears like he empowers everybody around him, whether it's Jordy, who just went with the Brooklyn Nets, but Jordy would get the opportunity to speak after games, or especially after Jordy. I remember a couple seasons ago, Jordy took over for Mike when he was ejected from a game. Jordy got the win, and Mike stepped back and said, Jordy, this is your locker room. You're leading it. You just got the win after this. From even to yourself. I mean, I remember training camp, stepping in and watching, seeing you leading the huddle and speaking to the guys and trying to provide your veteran leadership with the guys. Leadership is a big topic of conversation amongst media in Sacramento, fans in Sacramento. And I know you've talked about it a lot too. You've told stories in different shows here about the importance of leadership. I think you told a story after a close win in San Antonio, and there was celebration and you thought, hey, we should have won by more. We can't be happy with this. But leadership, especially with De'Aaron Fox, is a major topic of conversation too. And we've been talking about Fox's leadership style since he came into the league. And it seems to me, Fox is much of a leader by doing and leader by example, and less of a, like, I'm going to yell and tell you what to do. Although we see how much he talks smack on the court. What's just your perspective of Fox's leadership style? And do you think, as the number one guy on a team that's trying to win a championship eventually, and you've been on championship teams, can that leadership style work?
Yeah, definitely. I would say he's definitely a leader on the court. He's not as much as a vocal leader. Tell a guy, okay, you're doing this wrong, you need to do it right. Chastise guys. He's not that type of guy. But he's definitely in there early, there late, showing you that he's focused on what the plan ahead is, and that's to be an all-star, and that's to win games, and that's to stay healthy and to give his all to his organization. So I don't think that's a bad thing. But one person I can compare him to is Steph. Steph's also not that person. He's not telling guys, no, you need to do this, you need to do that. But they have Draymond to do that. So I feel like this team needs a Draymond type character to even out a bunch of good guys and nice guys who aren't really the type of guys who will go at a teammate and chastise them.
Was that your role a little bit? Not necessarily to go at teammates, but did you take that upon yourself this season to, all right, if no one's going to speak up, I'm going to be the guy to speak up? We also heard rumors about Trey Lyles speaking up as well, but was that kind of your focus of, this team needs it, I'm going to bring that?
I definitely tried to fulfill that role, especially being a veteran and especially being on teams that have won championships, 3 to be exact. So it was sort of, I don't want to say I tried to. It was sort of pushed upon me, not by the coaches or anything, but just by my inner self, because I'm a person who sees potential and understands what potential is, and it's definitely just a feeling until you actually get there. So I felt like there was so much potential on this team. So at certain times, I definitely would have to be that person to tell people, like, this isn't good enough if we want to be as great as we say we want to be.
3-time champion and Olympic gold medalist, JaVale. Don't sell yourself short. Don't sell yourself short now. You got to be wearing that on your neck at all times.
Absolutely.
I mean, an area of growth with this team, there was certainly some regression on the offensive end, and that was something Mike dealt with a lot talking to the media, because sometimes we don't necessarily understand the importance of taking from one to build up another. But defensively, he managed to turn this roster into a top 15 defense, which is something we've dreamed about in Sacramento really over 20 years. Defensively, This team has struggled for a very long time. What was the cause, you think, of getting this team to really buy in on defense? And it seemed like the latter half of the year, I'm not saying it was a referee thing, but they allowed you guys to play a little more physical, and the physicality you guys seem to really lean into.
I just think Mike was really harping on in the beginning of the season. He kept mentioning, okay, we had the best offense last year, but if we want to be a great team and make it far in the playoffs, we're going to have the best, or at least top 10, top 5 defense. So he was definitely harping on that all season. And when we have shoot around, we have a defensive part. When we have practice, we start off with defense. So it was definitely harping on defense the whole season.
Do you feel like you guys drifted a little too far away from what you could have been offensively? Or, I mean, was that just the natural progression of the league?
I don't know if I feel that way, but this is what people sometimes say. They say, okay, if you want to be better on defense, it's gonna take away from something. We don't know what that is. So sometimes it has you thinking, like, because we were trying so hard on defense, was it taking away from our shot being better, our shots going down just because we were exerting so much energy on defense and not just trying to outscore everybody? Now, I know that's not basketball. That's not the way the game is played if you're a high IQ player. But some people would say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But I mean, that's just an opinion of some people. That's not my personal opinion. I definitely think you need to defend if you want to be a great team, because you're not the only people who can score. There's a lot of scorers on a lot of teams, and you can tell that by just looking at these playoff games.
Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Summertime means baseball. I'm sure you're feeling, if you're in Sacramento, how hot it's getting outside as we transition truly into the summer months. We're in June now. It's crazy. We're almost halfway through June now. It's crazy. We got the NBA Finals going on, of course, the Stanley Cup final going on as well, and you can bet on all of that on FanDuel. But Baseball is what FanDuel really wants you to enjoy this summer. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on everything from who's going to win the finals MVP to who's going to hit a home run and your local Giants or A's game or whatever game that you're watching. FanDuel has it all. Again, you only have to put $5 of your own money down. You win that bet, you win whatever money you got from that $5 bet. And then here's $200 on top of that for you to really play and really make some money on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I love that. I loved your perspective on this because Keon's emergence this season, Keon Ellis's emergence was a big story as well. And I'm really excited for next season and the idea of what Keon consistently can do for De'Aaron, in the sense that in De'Aaron's career, the top guard, De'Aaron was typically the guy having to guard him, not just the final few minutes of the game, but most of the 35 plus minutes he was playing. And you can tell that takes a toll. And what's your perspective on, like, if Keon is out there playing with Fox consistently, or even Malik, if Malik comes back, or whoever it is, how Keon taking on that defensive responsibility can take the weight off of other top guys to where they can be their best selves offensively?
Keon has that motor in him where he can be an elite defender for 48 minutes. Not saying he's going to play 48 minutes a game, but when he's in there, he can be an elite defender, a 94-feet type guy, the same way that Davion does. And I think those guys are really harping on making Keon an even better defender. And I feel like Keon was this year was a coming out party for him. And it was unlucky that Malik got hurt. But it was a blessing for Keon, and sort of just because he got some great experience in major games and games that really count.
I'm sorry to rub salt in an old wound a little bit. We saw something this season that I've never seen before, JaVale. Before the playoffs, just in the regular season, because of the implementation of the in-season tournament, losing to the New Orleans Pelicans 6 times, losing to the same team 6 times in a season, that's nuts. And the buzzword that we use, just because we're trying to wrap our brain around it, is matchups. Oh, it's a bad matchup. It's a bad matchup for teams. And you see certain teams, like you guys matched up really well against the Lakers, swept the Lakers, and the Lakers swept the Pelicans. Just matchups don't seem to make sense. But what is a bad matchup from the perspective of a player who's actually out there dealing with a bad matchup or an X's and O's kind of approach to a game?
I just think the Pelicans had our number this year. It was something that they were doing that we weren't doing. And one thing I did recognize is that the Pelicans were willing to give it all and go all out. And they weren't trying to save face. They weren't trying to look cool. They were willing to strip all their humbleness or strip all their pride away and be as humble as possible and give it all every time they played us. And it was different when they played us and then they played the Lakers. We watched the games and we like, how did they lose to the Lakers? But when they play us, it's like, I don't know if one of the players or a couple of the players were supposed to be drafted in the draft and they slipped up, or Sacramento said they were going to draft them. But it was something when they played us. It was just like their mentality was totally different. Like they just can't lose against us, and it showed.
Welcome to Sacramento, JaVale. We've been dealing with that forever, of guys who come into Sacramento and suddenly become 45% three-point shooters from the perimeter. You're just like, where did this come from? You're a career 33% guy. But it's just Kings basketball in so many ways. But I want to go back to something you said earlier. You talked about the strength of the West. And one of the things you said, I agree with. De'Aaron said the same thing. Y'all weren't a bad team. You won 46 games. You were over 500. The West just was what it was. Now, I know y'all aren't making excuses or anything like that. That was just the reality of the situation. But the parity in the league is incredible. Like a handful of years ago, we were getting the Cavs and Warriors in the NBA over Finals every single year. Right. Yeah. It was the top teams, and then there was everybody else. Now you have almost every team in both conferences have a star, to some of them having 2 stars and a bright future. There's just so much talent in the league right now. From your perspective as a veteran, are you enjoying that? How cool is that? Where do you think the league is at, and what kind of good place is it in?
Absolutely. I mean, that's definitely a positive for the league, just because when there are multiple teams that possibly could make it to the playoffs, that possibly could make it to the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, and that could possibly make it to the finals, it grows the league in each in each section. So Oklahoma City is getting better and better and better. So now it's more Oklahoma City fans. In Minnesota, it's getting better and better and better. Now there's more Minnesota fans. A couple of years ago, you couldn't have said, "Oh yeah, Minnesota's going to make a run in the playoffs." But this year, we were literally sitting there like biting our fingers, like they really could make a run and keep going. So it's a beautiful thing for the game. It's a beautiful thing for watching the game. Also, I think it prevents those moments in the NBA where you have those stagnant NBA TV games that people aren't really watching. Now, you got teams that in smaller markets that are taking up TNT and ABC games.
Malik and you had on-court chemistry right away that was very noticeable. You talked about earlier how you catch lobs better than you shoot threes, and Malik was never afraid to throw a lob up there for you. I think game 1 of preseason, you guys connected for a lob like right away. Malik's future here in Sacramento, we would love to see him return, love to see him get paid and chase the payday in the bag that he absolutely deserves. But what I wanted to ask you about is him not winning Sixth Man of the Year. Kevin Herter took to social media saying, like, I don't get it. Now, no disrespect to Naz Reid. The Minnesota Timberwolves, like you said, had an incredible year. Naz Reid is one hell of a player. I don't know what more Malik Monk could have and should have done in order to win the award that's literally built for the kind of impact that he had on your team this season. What was your reaction to Malik not winning Sixth Man of the Year?
My reaction definitely was he should have won it. But at the same time, I understand how the league works and how the awards work. Usually, the awards go to the guys who have a winning record or who are on a team in the top 5 in energy like that. And Naz Reid was on a great team. So it was easier for guys to pick Naz Reid. We were in and out of the playoffs in those last spots. So it's hard to say, okay, this sixth man on this team is impacting this game so much, but the team isn't doing well. So how can you mark this person as a great sixth man when there's another person who's playing well also, but their team is top 5, top 3? You get what I'm saying? So that's usually how, or from what I saw of my knowledge that I've seen, those usually are how those awards are presented, because you can't run the MVP if your team is losing, even if you're averaging 50 points a game.
We debate a lot here in Sacramento about Malik starting versus Malik coming off the bench. I think it's pretty well known that he could have started on your team or any team, but it was Mike's decision to have him in that sixth man of the role because how impactful he was. You've started, you've come off the bench in your career. Does it matter? Like, how much does it really matter whether you're starting or coming off the bench? I suppose what matters the most is if you're on the floor at the end of the game in a close game, right?
Nah, hell no. It definitely matters. It definitely matters. Starting is very important. I don't think anybody wants, like, if they have the option, hey, do you want to start and play 25 minutes or come off the bench and play 30 minutes? I think they'll take that 25, less minutes and more exposure, just because that top 5, that starting 5 is a different energy. It's a different, even if you're only playing 10 minutes a game, that starting spot means more than that bench spot, even if you're playing 40 minutes a game. Now, that fourth quarter accusation, absolutely. You want to be in the fourth quarter just so people can see that your team needs you to win games. But that starting spot is extremely important. Sometimes for guys' egos, but most of the time just for guys getting up every day. It's a difference if you say, okay, you're going to start, but you're only going to play 10 minutes a game. Then, okay, you're going to come off the bench, but you're only going to play 10 minutes a game. Everybody's going to choose that starting spot to play 10 minutes a game because, you get to make an impact early. You get to get your minutes out the way, and then you get to focus and support your team. But coming off the bench sometimes, if you know you're only going to play 10 minutes a game, it's a different energy to where, like, let's see what I got today type energy. So, but as a professional, you definitely have to fight through that. There's no excuse for it, but definitely starting is better than coming off the bench any day. I think, I don't think any sixth man of the year would say, hey, if you can give your sixth man award back, would you to start for instead? And I bet you they would say, yeah.
Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by BetterHelp. Mental health is so unbelievably important. Like, I can't stress it enough. Hopefully you've heard me talk about it before on the Locked On Kings podcast. And going and seeking help when you need it, seeing a therapist when you need it, is something I could not recommend more to each and every single one of you. Look, I said when you need it, we all need it at different times. We're all carrying different baggage. We have stressors that are big or small. You don't need to think the way I used to think, which is I have to have some big trauma in my life or a big issue that I'm going through to see a therapist. No, it's like maintenance on your car, maintenance on your body. You go and work out, right? You don't just work out before a massive physical event like a weightlifting championship or running a marathon, right? You steadily work out to get your body in as good a shape as possible. It's the same way with your mental health. Go and see a therapist to tackle your issues, talk through your issues, and more importantly, develop the skills to handle the things that you face in day-to-day life. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and able to adapt to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Get it off your chest with BetterHelp. That's BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Well, you've been so gracious talking Kings basketball. Let's talk a little Jug Life. You're a co-founder of Jug Life. What can you tell us about what it is Jug Life does and why you wanted to get involved and start something like this?
So Jug Life Water is my foundation. We build water wells in other countries right now. We have water wells in Uganda. But our main purpose is to go around the country and teach kids. We do like assemblies. We go to schools and we teach them about the importance of drinking water and living a healthy and active lifestyle. We didn't realize and we didn't know how important or how uninformed people were, especially in America, a place that has water and access to plenty of fresh water. We didn't realize how important it was to teach them because we really don't know. Majority of America doesn't really know how much water you're supposed to drink or the effects of not drinking water. And we live in a world where sodas and juices and a lot of sugar is promoted rather than just drinking water. So when we started the organization, when we started the nonprofit, it was definitely something that was personal. I was drinking water in Denver, and I was drinking a gallon of water a day, and then I wrote on it Jug Life, and I started tagging it on Instagram, and then people started tagging me back like I'm doing it too, just because you're doing it. And then we realized we might have a movement, and we might be able to teach some people and help a lot of people in the process.
JaVale, when I was in college, a group of basketball teammates that were friends of mine, they carried around jugs that said Jug Life on it. So it was interesting to hear the story and hear the background behind it and kind of you inspire in that. But I mean, people might not know in addition to this work that you do, and they should know of it because on YouTube, you put out a series this week, this season, Ranked and Ready, just following like youth basketball and
Absolutely.
it's an AAU program, right? And an AAU coaching circle. From that, like wanting to tell stories through basketball to Jug Life, it's the consistency is youth and kids and youth sports. Why are you so passionate about that?
Just because as a kid, I didn't have YouTube and the internet, and I had to take inspiration from just what I saw around me. So now we have so much reach to reach so many different people instantly. Like literally be able to, just how we're doing this interview right now. I'm in Sacramento in my car and you're in the studio. You get what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
we have so much reach now. So when I figured that out, I was like, I have to help impact the youth, just because it's so much toxic, it's so many toxic things that they're consuming right now, when it comes to YouTube and Instagram and everything. So when I got the opportunity to show the behind the scenes of youth basketball, I took it and I put it on my YouTube, and I was trying to get it out as much as possible, just because it was a beautiful thing to see young boys focused on one goal, and one goal was to work hard and play basketball, but at the same time to have their fathers around supporting them, taking them to the games, making them meals, and making sure that they're prepared for what's ahead.
Well, you're a hooper through and through, JaVale, but this Saturday, you guys got the Jug Life Water for Life charity softball game going on. Before we dive into who's playing in this game and what this game is all about, softball, JaVale McGee, the softball player, what does that look like? Are you like I'm a three hitter, I'm going yard every time? What position you playing? Like, what's your softball game like?
So on defense, I'm either the pitcher or I'm the first base, but usually first base, because obviously we're not throwing fastballs from the pitching mound. So that first base, I lock that down, of course. And then when I'm at bat, I'm trying to go hit homers all day. It doesn't always work out like that, but I usually get on base. So that's definitely a positive in it. The other team captain is Matt Barnes, a Sacramento legend.
Oh yeah.
And he's been a part of the game before. For some reason, I guess because he used to play baseball when he was younger, he always hits homers in the game. So I'm just trying to keep up with that and win it this year.
Has the smack talking started yet? I'm sure it already
absolutely,
has.
Absolutely.
Does Matt Barnes ever not smack talk is probably the better question. So you guys, I mean, you've had legends play in this game, right? Steph Curry has played in this game. Draymond's played in this game. It's so cool that you do this all the time. Who can we expect who's playing here in Sacramento, and what you're looking forward to playing at Sutter Health Park, which is going to be the home of MLB baseball next year, JaVale?
Yeah, we're playing at Sutter Health Park, where the A's are going to be playing this year. I don't even think they're not even calling them the Sacramento A's or the Oakland A's. It's just the Athletics, huh?
Just the A's.
That's where we're going to be at. It's going to be a great day. It's Father's Day weekend. We'll have some of my celebrity friends on both teams, and just bring out your family, bring out your friends, bring out your fathers. Father's Day weekend, it's going to be great, man. I'm really excited about the passion of these Sacramento fans. I saw it just playing on the team and just seeing the way that the fans engage with everybody and how passionate they really are. So I'm sure it's going to be a great turnout, and I'm really excited.
Couple more. You touched on the fans, and I know you've played in the league a while, so you've played many games in Sacramento, from old Arco, Sleep Train, Power Balance Pavilion, whatever the hell we called it, to the Golden One Center now. Just over the course of your career, like, what memories do you have playing in Sacramento, and how does your perspective of this city changed by coming here and experiencing it through basketball?
So my mother was drafted here in '97 to the Monarchs. And I was here with her that one year. I think it was my 5th grade year. So I had a child view of Sacramento, but as a child, you don't have a car, you don't go places, you don't socialize, you just go to school and you go home. So you don't really get a real feel for it. But being here and getting a feel of the city and the people and the atmosphere, man, it's a great city, man. It's always love, no negativity. Everybody's always happy, and I love it out here. It's a pretty smooth transition.
Last one, you mentioned that people can come and support by going to the game, but how can people get involved with Jug Life, support the work that you're doing, and overall just continue to follow both the work that you're doing and the career of JaVale McGee? The career of JaVale McGee, as far as I know, isn't over yet. So how can people continue to follow all the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. For Jug Life on Instagram, it's Jug Life Water, juglifewater.com. You can go to the website if you want to donate or buy tickets. For me, JaVale McGee, that's my Instagram. I believe JaVale McGee is my Twitter. My X also. And and my YouTube is JaVale McGee also. I have it all. If you want to follow me, you can follow me and see what I have going on. I'm usually very transparent with everything I have going on. And I'm just really excited about Saturday, man, June 15th, Sutter Health. And it should be a great time. And I'm just excited for everybody to come out.
We'll be out there to work covering the game, JaVale, but we'll be enjoying the game as well. I'm looking forward to that, my friend. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time doing this. And like I said before we started the interview, getting to cover you this season. I've watched you just over the course of the years, playing on teams, playing on TV, and covering you when you were a visitor. But to have you come into Sacramento, bring your wisdom, and be able to cover you this season's been a lot of fun for me personally. So being able to do this kind of caps that off. So I really appreciate it, and thanks for taking the time to do this.
Appreciate it.
Huge thank you to JaVale again for joining me here on Locked On Kings. That was a lot of fun. I always enjoy when I'm able to talk to Kings players. Of course, we don't know what McGee's future looks like. He only signed a 1-year deal with Sacramento. I don't know if the Kings are planning on bringing him back or not, but regardless, we got to get to know the person behind the player that is JaVale McGee there a little bit. And I really enjoyed that. I hope you did too. And I would love to be able to do more conversations like this with Kings players on Locked On Kings. That's something I'm always working on, constantly working on. When we can make it happen, it's always a real treat. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks again to JaVale. I look forward to his event on Saturday. Next time, my name is Matt George. Thank you for your support as well. I'll talk to you on the next episode. You've been listening to Locked On Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.